This dude is a priest in the Anglican Church, or he was before he did a full-blown Hitler salute on stage after one of his events. Listen to this.
This I see as the last stand for the West. This is the last stand for Christendom.
I believe this is like a pro-life event that he was speaking at.
It's make or break time. The whole of the old world is crumbling. Every country in Europe is embracing death. America, as far as I could see, is the only country fighting for life.
What a delusional mindset to be in, right? I mean, it was a pro-life event, so I'm assuming he's talking about abortion specifically, but seriously, the delusion here.
That's down to you guys. So God bless all of you for what you're doing. Please keep doing it. I hope that I can encourage you, and my heart goes out to you. God.
There you go. Full-blown Nazi salute.
And my heart goes out to you. God bless.
People laughing in the crowd. Like they think it's funny.
Amazing, amazing.
No, not amazing. Anyway, this dude was defrocked as a priest, nearly immediately. By the way, I pulled this from his Twitter account. He posted it. He's proud of it. He thinks it's awesome. He tweeted this. I got it from his Twitter account. I'm having so much trouble finding him all of a sudden. That's weird. Well, anyway, he basically said that he was worried for his flock because now he can't give them communion and he didn't know what he was going to do and all this other stupid stuff. You didn't think about your flock, quote unquote, before Sieg Heiling? That didn't cross your mind? Oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. The dude actually, he had a conversation with Joel Webbon. Also, if you don't know Joel Webbon, buckle up for that one. We're going to listen to that in a second, but just read what the Anglican Catholic Church wrote about when they defrocked him here. At approximately 3:00 p.m. today, January 29th, members of the College of Bishops of the ACC, the Anglican Catholic Church, I assume, were made aware of a post made on X showing the end of a speech made by Calvin Robinson at the National Pro-Life Summit in Washington, D.C. In it, he closed his comments with a gesture that many have interpreted as a pro-Nazi salute. Cut the "many have interpreted" part out. It was a Nazi salute. Don't give these people any ground. It's not something that you interpret as something. It is a Nazi salute. That's what it is. While we cannot say what was in Mr. Robinson's heart when he did this, his action appears to have been an attempt to curry favor with certain elements of the American political right by provoking its opposition. Mr. Robinson had been warned that online trolling and other such actions, whether in service of the left or the right, are incompatible with a priestly vocation and was told to desist. Clearly, he has not, and as such, his license in this church has been revoked. He is no longer serving as a priest of the Anglican Catholic Church. Notice the word there that they use, trolling. They said trolling. The Anglican Church is an offshoot of the Catholic Church, I believe. There's this graph that we can look at. Let me pull it up. This is a real basic graph. It started out really early, shortly after Jesus died or whatever. Then there was something called the Catholicos. Orthodox used to kind of control Christianity generally, and then Catholicism took over everything. I believe Catholicism means universal, and Orthodox means correct, basically. So anyway, Catholicism took everything over and became rigid and picked up the belief that the Bible isn't the only source of God's truth. It's also the culture of the religion that needs to be passed on from the priestly class. So, 1,500 years ago or whatever, Catholics are giving communion and they're saying Hail Marys, they're doing confessions and everything, all the things that Catholics do. That stuff isn't in the Bible, a lot of it, but it's part of Catholic culture and they believe that they're the big important whatever. So that's an order from God. The Anglican Church didn't really like that. So they split off from the Roman Catholic Church. Protestants also split off from the Roman Catholic Church. The Anglican Church was a little bit later. I think it was around 1530. 1517 is when Protestantism split off with Lutherans. And then Calvinists split off also alongside the Lutherans around the same time, about 1540, give or take. Henry VIII of England severs ties with Rome. That's when the Anglican Church was created. I'm not sure what the Anglican Catholic Church is, or if it's like different from the Anglican Church. I assume they're the same, but that kind of gives you an idea of, like, the system and how it kind of split apart. From what I'm reading here, it looks like the Anglican Catholic Church is a little bit different from the Anglican Church in that the ACC, Anglican Catholic Church, was founded in 1977 and only has like a few hundred congregations, as far as I can tell. In January 1978, 4 bishops were consecrated. The new church continued to appeal to disaffected Episcopalians to join. The Anglican Catholic Church created the missionary diocese of the Caribbean and New Granada in 1982 and consecrated Justo Pastor Ruiz, a former Episcopal priest, its first bishop. So it looks like the Anglican Catholic Church is a lot newer than the Anglican Church. But anyway, they defrocked him, is the bottom line. So they said, "We understand that this is not just an administrative matter. The Holocaust was an episode of unspeakable horror enacted by a regime of evil men. We condemn Nazi ideology and anti-Semitism in all its forms, and we believe that those who mimic the Nazi salute, even as a joke or an attempt to troll their opponents, trivialize the horror of the Holocaust and diminish the sacrifice of those who fought against its perpetrators. Such actions are harmful, divisive, and contrary to the tenets of Christian charity." That, I couldn't have said that better myself, honestly. That was really well said. Those who mimic it, even as a joke, trivialize it. That's really well said. I appreciate that. Finally, we pray that God will give us grace to lay aside our unhappy divisions, and we commend our nation and ourselves to his almighty protection. In my opinion, politics should not divide a church. Churches should be zeroed in on community and loving Jesus, just religion. Some people disagree on some things. Some people believe that a woman should be able to make a choice as to whether she gets an abortion, but wouldn't personally get an abortion. Some people believe that, you shouldn't have that choice at all. But those two positions shouldn't divide your church in half, in my opinion. You should be able to function and work together no matter what. And the fact that this dude did this is just evidence that he's a child, he's petty, and he doesn't know how to unify people. He doesn't know how to bring people together. All he knows how to do is divide. And he has no place as a pastor for that reason, if no other. Let's just take a quick glance through this article. This is the Rolling Stone. Priest defrocked after copying Elon Musk's salute at pro-life summit. The Anglican Catholic Church has defrocked Father Calvin Robinson after the priest went viral for mimicking a recent gesture by Elon Musk that really, really looked like a Nazi salute. I wish people would stop saying that. It was a Nazi salute, period. I get why they're saying that, but that's what it was. In a statement released Wednesday, leadership of the ACC wrote that we are made aware of posts on X showing the end of a speech made by Calvin Robinson at the National Pro-Life Summit in Washington, D.C. Let me blow this up so I can read it better. In it, he closed his comments with a gesture that may have been interpreted as a pro-Nazi salute. In his closing remarks at the summit, this is the Rolling Stone speaking again. In his closing remarks at the summit, Robinson quoted Musk, telling the crowd, "My heart goes out to you," before tapping his right hand to his chest and extending his arm, palm down, in a salute to the crowd. Actually, that's not exactly correct. Calvin Robinson said it as he did it. "My heart goes out to you." Elon Musk did it. Hand to chest and then outstretched arm. And a second later, "My heart goes out to you." Unconnected things. We all saw what happened. I just don't want us to forget. Musk was embraced and celebrated by extremists and neo-Nazis when he performed the gesture twice while speaking to Trump supporters following the inauguration last week. Musk's intention was unclear, but the gesture has been widely likened to a Nazi salute. No, Musk's intention was completely clear. Everybody knew what happened. Everybody. And you don't need to take my word for it. You can take neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes' word for it. Full-blown, self-avowed, Hitler-loving Nazi Nick Fuentes, basically the leader of the Nazi movement in America today.
And then the straight up, that was a serious Roman. It wasn't even like
the Roman salute, by the way. It's just some name that was created for theater 150 years ago. It was not done by the Romans. I don't even know why they call it the Roman salute. It's the Hitler salute. It's the Sieg Heil. If you prefer, it's the Bellamy salute.
Like a subtle, a wave, like one of these, like a Laura Ingraham. Remember when Laura Ingraham did that?
Yeah, I talked about that on my channel recently.
That was a straight up, Sieg Heil, loving Hitler energy. that was a straight up with intensity Roman salute.
So that's what Nazis are saying about it. If Nazis are recognizing it as the salute, I'm comfortable recognizing it as such also. Anyway, the Rolling Stone continues. The crowd at the National Pro-Life Summit applauded raucously after Robinson delivered the same salute in what was a clear homage to Musk. Oh yeah, this is from their message. The church, which Robinson had only been a member of since 2024, oh wow, added, this is not just an administrative matter. We believe that those who mimic the Nazi salute, even as a joke, trivialize the horror of the Holocaust. Yeah. In 2022, Robinson left the Church of England, into which he hoped to be ordained after completing his theological studies. Robinson was not offered a deaconship and accused the church of rejecting him due to his politics. Yeah, so the Church of England, that's the Anglican Church, I believe, right? Let me just verify that. Yes, it is the Anglican Church. So he left the Anglican Church for the Anglican Catholic Church. And I have the article about that here on Church Times about he was rejected a deaconship. And they basically said, we're not doing it because of your skin color or your beliefs or whatever. We just don't have a place for you right now. And you have to have a place to be a priest before you can receive this role or whatever. The London Diocese, or a spokesperson for the London Diocese said, we have a limited number of curacies available, which were considered on a case-by-case basis. In this instance, it's felt that there's no suitable option available that London can currently offer. He briefly served as a deacon in the Free Church of England before seeking a position with the Nordic Catholic Church, a traditionalist Catholic Norwegian church. He ministered at the church for less than a year before jumping to the ACC. That's really interesting. I wonder why he church hops so much. The church did not immediately respond to a request for comment from the Rolling Stone. Among his recent Twitter posts, Mr. Robinson describes quote-unquote wokeness as a spiritual virus. Another from October 10th last year gives details of a webinar on climate justice aimed at ordinance, including a session on, quote, what are the theological implications of climate change? He writes, the Church of Woke. This is piffle is being directed at the next generation of vicars. I don't know what that means. I hope I didn't say a slur just now. In another email obtained by Mr. Robinson, Bishop Wickham writes, Calvin's comments concern me about denying institutional racism in this country. In February 2020, the Archbishop of Canterbury told the General Synod that the church was still deeply institutionally racist. Last April, the Archbishops of Canterbury and York welcomed the report of the Anti-Racism Task Force and pledged immediate action on 5 of its recommendations. Mr. Robinson, who is black, wrote on Sunday that he fundamentally disagreed with this approach and described it as divisive and offensive. He says, I do not think the claim that either the church or wider society is institutionally racist has ever been supported by robust evidence, he wrote. Well, you're just wrong. It has. I don't know what to tell you. You know, you want evidence of it? I'll give you evidence. What percentage of black people in a community are leaders of churches versus how many are white in that same church community and hold leadership roles? It doesn't mean that anybody anywhere along the system is racist. Nobody has to be racist. That's what systemic means. That it's just like a system thing. That it just so happens that this emergent property exists. It doesn't have to be a specific person like intentionally doing anything racist. That's just how it works. Even if there are totally innocent reasons for all of this, like, I don't know, the black community just chooses not to go into pastoring for one reason or another, not as much as the white community. It's a systemically racist system which is perpetuated by itself. When a black person, for example, does try to become a pastor of a church, it's more of an uphill battle because it's unusual. It's less common. Again, I don't even know if any of that data is accurate. I'm just providing an example. And that's how it works in government too. Like, people with the name Tyrone or Mercedes are less likely to get jobs. They're less likely that their resumes will be like approved because they're black sounding names. Doesn't have to be a racist actor anywhere in the system. It's just like it's systemic subconscious bias that exists. We should try to correct for that so that that bias doesn't exist. Anyway, says Mr. Robinson says that in a meeting with Bishop Mullally, she said to him, "Calvin, as a white woman, I can tell you that the church is institutionally racist." Okay, hard doubt. I don't believe a word out of this guy's mouth, but whatever. On Tuesday, Bishop Mullally said, "Much has been written about my private conversations with Calvin during the discernment process, some of which I do not recognize. Quote, while I believe it right to maintain the personal and confidential nature of the process, I can be clear that, as with all applications for ministry in the diocese, Calvin's was considered irrespective of church tradition or views on politics or race, as is the case for every candidate." So he's playing the persecution card right now and simultaneously complaining that other people are like paying attention to potential sources of persecution. This is just wild. This guy is a complete piece of trash. I'm sorry, man. I don't know how else to say it. Anyway, let's talk about Joel Webbin. Dude went on Joel Webbin. Why does he have a Lincoln beard, an Abraham Lincoln beard? This is just odd to see. He has it here too. I didn't even notice. That is a weird looking, like, style. Okay. Anyway, Joel Webbin is a right-wing extremist, Christian nationalist, Nazi pastor whose primary ideology is Christianity and secondary is Nazism, which I will prove in a minute. But listen to what they said to each other. This came out December 2024, so a month before he did the Nazi salute.
Israel, politically, I think is problematic with these United States of America. I do not think that this is a healthy political relationship. Religiously, spiritually, Judaism, I believe, is a pernicious evil. I really do. I don't think that all false religions are equal. And I think we should be aware of that and talk about that at a temporal level and then also an eternal level.
That is really interesting to hear a Christian nationalist kind of demonizing Christianity, or I'm sorry, demonizing Judaism that way. Let me explain. Pretty much everybody on the right has a weird hang up with Israel and with Jews. Everybody. Everybody on the Christian far right. Some of them believe that, like, Jews killed Jesus and that they're inherently in their souls just bad and untrustworthy. Like, it's not like a cultural thing or whatever. It's like a gene thing. And if that's the case, you're a Nazi. That's what the Nazis believed. And these two fit the bill pretty closely. The other set of far-right Christian nationalists are obsessed with Israel, like, to a weird degree. They call themselves Zionists because, as an ideology, Zionism is a belief that Jews should control that region of the Middle East in its entirety. And it's an inherently far-right, nationalistic, extremist ideology. I talked about this recently, but if this is like the first video you've seen of mine, which is statistically likely, I'll mention it one more time. Zionism is a far-right nationalistic ideology, and as such, got along with the Nazi ideology really, really well. In fact, they even made deals with each other, Zionists and Nazis. At the time when the agreement was signed, August, I believe, 1933, Hitler was trying to push Jews out of Germany. He didn't have broader ambitions yet, or he didn't tip his hand to show us that he did at the very least. He was just trying to get him out of Germany at the very least. And Zionists signed a pact with Hitler. I believe the Havara Pact is what it was called, something to that effect, to allow Jews to escape Germany with most of their assets if they were going to Palestine. Modern day Zionists are obsessed with Israel because they believe that Jesus will, when he returns, he will return in Israel at the temple in Jerusalem. And then, the Jews will be judged and they'll all die a horrible death. You know the whole bit. So they need Israel to exist so that it can be destroyed according to their eschatology, their apocalyptic beliefs. Like Mike Huckabee, for example, he doesn't give a shit about Jews or Israel. He wants Jesus to return. And them being there is a fundamental piece of that. So that's why I say right-wing nationalists, right-wing Christian nationalists all have a specific view of Israel. It's just that some of those right-wing nationalists want Israel to exist. And it seems to me that we've found a couple of people that don't want Israel to exist and don't want Jews to exist. That's clear as day. If not from the Hitler salute that Calvin Robinson gave, then the vile, psychotic things that Joel Webbin has to say. Joel Webbin went on Stu Peters' TV show. I have a bunch of stuff about Stu Peters if you want to learn more about him. He is a full-blown, self-avowed, Hitler-loving Nazi. Says that he believes white people are superior and the whole 9 yards. So anyway, the fact that he went on Stu Peters' program at all, the fact that he knows who Stu Peters even is, tells me that he is a Nazi. But when he went on there, he said things like this.
And we should think about Israel. That doesn't mean we have to have a malice, but we should think about the modern state of Israel. Number one, that this is not the same as Old Covenant Israel in our Old Testament. It's not. Number two, it is a legitimate nation state. I'm not saying the way that it was started was legitimate, but all things, whether right or wrong. So Joe Biden, I think he stole the election, but there is a certain point where even if
they're never going to give up on that, are they?
A king comes in wrongfully, there is a certain point where he's been there long enough. He is king. It is a legitimate kingdom, or it's a legitimate nation. So my point is saying that is Israel. I think that the founding was one of the biggest mistakes in history that just gave birth to unceasing wars.
Again, I actually agree that it was absolutely terrible and has wreaked havoc on society, on human civilization, that Israel is there and is an apartheid state, has been an apartheid state since day one, basically, refused to work with Palestinians to have a one-state solution. That is wreaking absolute havoc on society. But anyway, I'm different from these guys in that I don't want anybody hurt. I don't want anybody dead. I don't have ill will toward anybody. I just want fighting to stop. And if Israel could figure out how to coexist in that region, I would be okay with the country being named Israel. I don't care. But they shouldn't lock people out of their political system or lock them out of immigration or anything. It's an apartheid state when you do that.
Wars, and it's never going to stop. But that said, it is a legitimate nation state. And so I think that Christians should view it not as this special carved out people, but the same way we view any other nation, China or Brazil. We should view it as these are people made in the image of God. They need to get saved. There's not any special divine land right for them. Mm-hmm. There's not a special promise of revival for them. We send missionaries just like we would anywhere else, with only one exception. Not that they're special, but there is one exception. There are certain cults and groups that are incredibly hostile towards Christ. But in terms of major world religions, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, there is no major world religion with a more hostile view towards the person and work of Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord, than Talmudic Judaism.
Wow, dude.
Heartbreak. I have to stop down. Heartbreak. Yeah. Fascinating conversation.
Anyway, yeah. The guy... I watched the whole thing on my Unfiltered channel if you want to find it. Owen Morgan Unfiltered. It was completely unhinged and it was anti-Semitic, but Stu Peters isn't anti-Semitic. He is full-blown Nazi. I'm just trying to draw a network here to give you an idea of the types of people that Calvin Robinson hangs around, talks with, works with. I don't care if he was trolling. I don't care if he's joking. I don't care if it was insincere. I don't care. He did a Nazi salute and he hangs around with Nazis. It's pretty clear what's happening here, right? To give you a little more context on Joel Webbin, you check this clip out just so you have an idea of like some of the types of like moral beliefs that this little group of nutcases have.
The majority right now would say, well, the Dark Ages were terrible, and they're burning witches, and everybody is oppressed by Christianity.
Yep.
And
that's pretty bad. I agree 100%. Go on.
By Christianity and by, the clergy and it was just this horrible, horrible time. Whereas at that time, the majority would disagree. The majority during those centuries would say, no, Christendom is great. We love Christ. We love his church.
By the way, Christendom, I looked it up recently because Jehovah's Witnesses have a different interpretation. It's a kingdom set up in the name of God with a king that is a representative of God. Vatican would be Christendom, kind of, because the Pope is God's vicar on earth or whatever. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Christendom, quote unquote, represents all of Christianity and is evil. But I guess he wants Christendom, apparently.
We're making incredible advancements. We've pushed back on the darkness and on driven literal demonic spirits out of northern European tribes and places and the Americas and all this kind of stuff, and making incredible progress, incredible discoveries and charting new maps and innovation and inventions.
Innovation and inventions and mapping is a good thing in your mind? Then trust me, you don't want more Dark Ages. Do you know why they're called the Dark Ages in the first place? He said there was witch burning and stuff at the time. But that's a good thing. That just led to more innovation. What is wrong with you? And let me just, give this a listen. The Dark Ages are called such because historians from the Renaissance period viewed the time following the fall of the Roman Empire as a period of intellectual decline, with little cultural advancement, widespread illiteracy, and a lack of significant artistic or scientific achievements, essentially seeing it as a dark time compared to the classical era of Greece and Rome. This perception is largely considered outdated by modern historians who recognize complexities within the period. That's why it was named that in the first place. Of course, there are complexities. Of course, there's nuance to everything. But the Dark Ages were a bad time overall in human history. It was not pleasant. There is an eternal struggle in society between progress and traditionalism. There has always been a struggle between the two. I want to move forward. I want America to move forward. Of course, taking some steps back at the moment, but set that aside. I want us to move forward. I want us to progress. I want us to have better literacy rates, happier people, more wealth for everybody instead of being concentrated at the very top. I want prosperity for everybody. But every time people try to make progress in history, there's the church standing in the way. There's the church fighting back with everything that it has, trying to force us back into a traditionalist mold every single time. Go back to every major political event in U.S. history at the very least, and you will find people on the wrong side using the Bible to justify their atrocities. And the right side, to be fair, using the Bible to condemn atrocities. But the point is that the church has always stood in the way of progress, always. And it blows me away that he kind of signals to these virtuous things like technological advancements and literacy rates and everything else, while not realizing that what he's trying to do would make that worse. Or maybe he does realize and he just doesn't care. I don't know. I can't tell.
Northern European tribes and places and the Americas and all this kind of stuff, and making incredible progress, incredible discoveries and charting new maps and innovation and inventions. And
this is just like straight delusion right here.
discoveries and charting new maps and innovation and inventions. And so I'm of the persuasion that I think the whole idea of the Dark Ages is a psyop. I think that the Dark Ages was actually a golden age, and that the Great Enlightenment is actually the dark spell that has come over the West, and that if anything, we're in the Dark Ages now.
Brother, get help. That is a psychotic thing to come out of your mouth. We're in the Dark Ages now. He mentioned the Enlightenment. Thomas Jefferson was one of the Enlightenment founders, if you will, along with other people from the era. And the idea behind the Enlightenment is that, let me just define this. The Enlightenment was a philosophical movement in Europe during the 17th and 18th centuries that emphasized the use of reason and logic to understand the world, promoting ideas like liberty, progress, tolerance, and individual rights, often challenging established religious and political authority in favor of a more rational society. It's also known as the Age of Reason. And the Enlightenment is responsible for all the good things that we have today, all of them. Like I said, there's the church standing in the way when we try to make progress. The Enlightenment movement moved us forward despite the fact that the church was fighting. That despite the fact that the church benefited from the Enlightenment principles, we had to drag it along, kicking and screaming the whole way. Would we have the internet if we entered a dark age rather than an age of enlightenment in America in the 1700s? Would we have cars? Would we have the literacy rate that we have today? I doubt it. Based on everything that Donald Trump is doing at this immediate moment in history, seems pretty clear to me that it's going to make things worse to have a kind of a Christian nationalist system. That is like blatantly obvious. I would just give you another idea of the types of people that Calvin Robinson hangs around. Listen to what Joel Webben had to say in this conversation.
If Pete Hegseth...
by the way, if you're watching 10 years in the future, Pete Hegseth was just sent through his confirmation hearing not too long ago to become the Secretary of Defense, I believe.
Were to answer these women who are asking him about women in combat truthfully and say, Madam, Senator, I don't think women should be in the military, period. And in fact, I don't think you should be a senator either. This is a man's role. Go home. He would not get the confirmation. But what that would do is it would open the door to so many men, young men who are thinking and seeing the world that way and realizing this is all wrong. This is not a debate about whether women can be in this kind of combat or that kind of combat. This is a debate about men's place in the world versus a woman's place in the world.
This is what they do. They're chipping away at rights, fundamental rights that we believed were already established, and there's no question about them. Like birthright citizenship, that's established, period. And it is established. But Trump is trying to chip away at it. That's just one example. Women's suffrage, that's established. That's a 19th Amendment, I believe. That's not going away, but they're chipping away at it as much as they can. They're starting a movement. You know what happened when enough political figures, started getting loud about alcohol and how frustrating it was that people like drink and all that stuff? They passed a constitutional amendment to ban it. And you know what happened when senators said, wow, we were real idiots back then, let's correct that? They passed a constitutional amendment to repeal it. It doesn't matter what roadblocks are in the way. If there is a loud enough voice screaming that it wants this thing, like the church, for example, screaming about this as an institution, they will find a way to do it given enough time and without enough pushback. That's why this is so disturbing. And by the way, his mention of Pete Hegseth there, let me show you why he's talking about Hegseth in the first place, complaining about women in the military or whatever, because he said this.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal.
Like, that is absolutely not true. That's a complete lie.
Has made fighting more complicated.
No, it hasn't.
We've all served with women and they're great. Mm-hmm. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
men are more capable? Where are you getting this? Men are not more capable than women in the military. Anyway, like I said, there is a kind of movement that's rumbling under the surface right now, trying to find a place to erupt, find cracks in the ground that it can hit with a sledgehammer so that it erupts and it's successful. That's what we're watching happen right now. And Joel Webbin, Pete Hegseth, Calvin Robinson, they're all symptoms of the same problem: right-wing extremism. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments.